someone decided it would be a good idea to talk Thanksgiving GPP strategy before all the inactives were set. And while some of us were drunk, it's hard to know who is drunk or not. But the Tilt Space boys are here on a Wednesday, a blackout Wednesday, to talk through the slate. Let's do it.
I suffer from a debilitating condition known as atropic chokitis.
Peter's one of the greatest depositors I've ever seen.
Trust the process. Let's go. Let's go.
I got auto matched with Levitan. This is bullshit.
If I just go the other way in that 66, I win all the money. All the money.
If I had 150 lineups, I'd win too.
Process over results.
Illuminati make a bitch go crazy. I don't know which one of these my baby. Bust down AP, coach 5 bullets in your head like KD. Bust it, bitch go bust it. And I had 10 pints with me in Russia.
Hey everyone.
Leone, are you hungover from last night?
I'm a little tired.
I
gotta say if I had 150 lineups, I'd win too. Just gets me every time.
It's
so good. So good.
It holds up. I was bummed to miss your show. It seems like you guys were having a fun time because we were doing Club Top Shot, and it seemed like you guys were getting after it last night.
Yeah, we had a good time. Dink and I got after it. Dink somehow promised people we'd do another drunk show if we got to 1,000 likes, and then we did. So
wait, you got an invite, Pete? You got an invite to jump on this? What's that all about? Did I embarrass myself that bad to where Pete got an invite?
Yeah, Joe, you already had your drunk show.
Well, how the tables have turned, because apparently Pete is in one, and I'm completely sober, just tired. I guess I'll be LinkedIn Joe today, and you're hungover, man. So I guess I thought I was feeling the worst of the three of us. It sounds like I'm feeling the best.
You've gotten multiple drunk shows in on the Tilt Space. You've been drunker than both Leone and I combined.
What happened, Pete? When was the first drunk show? It was the week after you called me LinkedIn Joe. I guess took that very personally.
You did step it up because you went from being a fake drunk to being legitimately drunk on two Tilt Space shows.
No one can call me fake drunk ever again.
That's 3 out of 10.
Yeah, well,
when do you get on your plane?
Tomorrow morning, like 9. So I literally have like 5 videos in the hopper. So we're good to go.
5 videos in the hopper?
Reeves is the man. Reeves is an absolute machine. We went through every game today for like 30 minutes each. Guy is an absolute savage. Love that guy.
Like, this is how Holka celebrates, by getting fucking 6 videos in the can for Thanksgiving.
Gotta do it, man. Gotta do it.
What are you doing for Thanksgiving, Leone?
Oh man, Thanksgiving, I'll be honest, like during the pandemic, it's great because we just go over to my parents' house and it's just the 5 of us, me, Micah, Rachel, and my parents, and I can sit in sweatpants and we eat super early and then we just pick on leftovers all day long and then the Bills play at night. So it's a bit of a dream for me, actually.
I do feel like more than recent Thanksgivings that I can remember, this is like you need to actively manage your fantasy team week. Like there's a lot of news that is going to impact decisions on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, we already, like as you said, our show yesterday is already somewhat dead because it looks like Ingram and Kamara aren't going to play and CeeDee Lamb is going to play. So.
Oh, God. Now I got to make 5 more videos because I think all mine are brutal out too.
I mean, it is. Yeah, I talk about just worthless content is GPP content before this Thursday slate. Thank you guys for tuning in to this GPP strategy show. I mean, there's so much stuff that it feels like is still up in the air because we don't even have confirmed that. It seems like Jared Goff is truly questionable as well, right?
Yeah, I feel somewhat more confident in the guesses that like Ingram, Kamara out, CeeDee Lamb in. Yesterday was kind of like it's 50-50. We have to guess one way or another. I'd put those more like at 80-20 that they're happening.
Because I had pulled in your projections earlier and it had Ingram playing. Have you updated to Ingram out?
They're updated and the ownership projections are updated too if that scenario holds. We're on top of our shit, Pete.
I appreciate that. I didn't even realize, like, when did Ingram get hurt? I missed that.
I didn't even realize he was hurt either. And then he didn't practice yesterday. And I kind of, just blew it off. And then this morning, it sounded like, I think Rappaport had said something about how it seems like both Kamara and Ingram aren't going to play. It seems like Kamara is really not close to coming back.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense on the short week. So like how are you guys thinking about this then from, we're going to build a tilt space lineup right now. We are registered for the 1500. I mean, we are staring down the barrel of having to communicate with each other all tomorrow throughout the day because like this is not an insignificant amount of money we have decided to put into this lineup.
Oh God, dude! I was hoping that we would get Kamara as even like a game time decision because then we could just put him in the flex on all these teams and then adjust from there. But now we're not even going to get that, and I have to change a thumbnail, so this is the worst.
That's where Joe's brain goes. Is the thumbnail.
I was kind of with Joe, like the chance to get Alvin Kamara at 20% on a 3-game slate with no expensive options was pretty appealing. But it seems like that dream is dead. I do still think that. David Montgomery is going to be massive chalk in this opening game. And I really like the idea of fading him in the opening game. And then, we could almost have like lineup A and lineup B based on what David Montgomery does. Like almost make 2 lineups ahead of time. If he totally tanks, we can go, with a chalk, Dak stack or something.
And it seems like you guys boosted now. You have Tony Jones being like,
are you just going to battle through that? Chalk. Was that a burp?
I did just burp. Yeah. I've been drinking all afternoon, dude. Just
yeah. How did the Swolecast go?
It was good. Tuttle was stoned. I was drunk. Davis was angry with all of us for being a shit show. It was
how do you guys get mad at other people for being a shit show?
Because Davis is the sober one, so that he kind of just rolls his eyes at our antics.
Yeah. Well, Davis, that's how it is for us 90% of the time. So. Yeah, Tony Jones, though, essentially just gave him the Mark Ingram role minus a little bit. I mean, he's this running back minimum on DK at 4K. So that seems like a guy that you'd start with and then you'd just swap off if you had to. They have Dwayne Washington, but Jones was pretty clearly ahead of him. They might call up Josh Adams from the practice squad, but I don't imagine he'd play much. So...
But don't you agree? Like, I mean, we've talked a bit before about a few of these spots on the main slates that have been true free squares. Just like looking at how he projects as a points per dollar. Oh, now we have a cat. Can we get a cat and dog stream up here? I was going to say, is Tony Jones, to me, he's not a free square or a guy you absolutely have to play.
Well, but it's a 3-game. No, he's not because the pricing on the slate is so loose.
Yeah.
Before we had Lamb, Dink and I were looking at the receivers, and there was literally Diggs above 6K, and that was it. Now you've got Lamb, who's I think only 6,900. So I don't think he's a free square, but I also think that'll keep him like our projected ownership's like basically Montgomery, Jones, Swift combining for like 150%, and then Jacobs and Zeke. Not quite that level, but still decently high when you consider running back in the flex. And then, people sprinkle, the backup running backs, the pass down running backs.
Joe, is there anyone you feel like you are just, that is a free square for you, knowing that the pricing is pretty loose that you can just put them in your lineup? Is there a guy that stands out for you?
Dude, I'm tilting so much content stuff right now. 4K for Tony Jones seems like an absolute smash. Like even when we were looking at the Sims earlier today, like Mark Ingram was like a top 5 guy at his price in the Sims. So like now, like you get a guy that's basically half of that. I mean, he seems like a guy that we could build around for sure. And I guess like that he's in the last game. I always try and approach these as game by game type of scenarios anyways. So I like that he's later on in the slate. Honestly, like the one that stands out to me now, and everyone's going to go this direction. It's not like he's going to be unique. He'll probably be one of the chalkiest players on the slate, but CeeDee Lamb, like that is a smash spot against the Raiders because all they do is try and defend deep. Like CeeDee is going to have like 12 targets in the middle of the field.
Do you think?
I like CeeDee more than Diggs.
Me too.
Like if you had to pick an expensive wide receiver.
I was going to say, I mean, normally if we saw these similar dynamics, guy we expected to be out at the last second or even 24 hours in advance is looking like he's going to play, we'd get a bit of an ownership discount on it. Do you think that happens on this slate or that CeeDee Lamb just immediately snaps back into being one of the most popular plays?
I think he immediately snaps back.
Me too.
I think there's enough coverage from Diggs, but I mean, yet like Joe with the head injury, when you're cleared from that, it's kind of like it's not like he's gonna be hampered by an ankle.
It's kind of brutal too, because there still would have been people that wouldn't have played Diggs because of like the Lattimore stuff. But like, man, Diggs absolutely eats against teams that play that much man coverage. Like I literally listened to Reeves go on about it for like 5 minutes today, and he convinced me about Diggs. So maybe this is a good thing in that way. Like all those people that were going to play Diggs are now just going to play CeeDee. But it was kind of nice when there was just like one option up there. And you could kind of make that decision, where I thought people initially were going to be a little bit too light on Buffalo. But now, like, this changes a lot just for the Dallas projection across the board. Like, now I like Dallas a lot more than I did before.
Leone, how are you thinking about this slate from, kind of, getting extremely heavy on one game versus, trying to pick your spots? Are you leaning toward kind of over correlating, getting as few things right as needed here?
Yeah, I think you could over correlate. I feel like if you hit something contrarian early, you could really just bet on like Las Vegas, Dallas game getting pretty nutty. I think that's sort of my strategy. But if you play Buffalo, the nice thing about Buffalo, like you could legitimately play Allen with like 3 or 4 guys, and it's tough to bring back, but you could, play it like a 4-1,
Yeah.
You don't have to bring it back if you don't want to, right? Like just take a shot on one of those wide receiver slots in one of the other games.
Yeah, and then the thing that's nice late with Tony Jones, if you leave enough room, I think there's a chance Zach Moss is inactive.
Really?
I had speculated that drunkenly last night, but then Joe Buscaglia, like the beat writer from The Athletic, said that might happen. So, that gets, if you save $800 so that you can go from Tony Jones to Breda as an emergency swap, or $900 to get up to Singletary. If Moss is out, like both those guys are immediately more interesting, and you're going to get, people aren't going to have maneuverability at that point to really play those guys. The issue is you're going to have to leave like almost 1,000 on the table with your Tony Jones lineup to do that, or figure out a 2v2 swap with somebody else that's in the last game.
So I missed this. What's the boots on the ground? Is Zach Moss just fully fallen out of favor with the Bills?
It just seems like he's slowly fallen out of favor. Breda played real well a couple weeks ago, and then last week Moss's snaps were down to 28%, which is one of the lowest that he's had on this season. He's had about 2 other games like that, but he didn't get a target. He's only had 1 target the last 2 weeks. Just seems like they're phasing him out a little bit, and I could be wrong. Like all 3 could be active, but
yeah.
On such a small slate, it's worth giving yourself that out where you could have a legitimately good play that's not played a lot. Like there's not going to be that many of those on a 3-gamer.
And just to put a bow on that, how do you think your projections would shift to, I assume Singletary and Breida would project extremely well if Moss was out.
Yeah, I think we'd have Singletary. The thing is that, I guess if I'm walking that back a little bit, it's just that they probably wouldn't project extremely well. They'd probably project fine, but like Tony Jones would still project. Let me see. I think we'd have them both around 10 points. I think we'd have them combined for about 20 points, and we have Tony Jones for 14 points. So they'd still be like 3 to 4 points behind Tony Jones, but. This was something I was saying yesterday. On a main slate, when you're sacrificing 3 to 4 points, it's so much because there's like 10 other guys in that 3 to 4 point window that you have to beat. Whereas if it's just Tony Jones, then 3 to 4 points isn't that. Then you're more just looking at it like, oh, well, Tony Jones is 70-30 to beat these guys, but he's like 80% in our stuff, and Breida's 3.
Yeah. Joe, do you have a lean on the running back situation? Like Leone said, DeAndre Swift and David Montgomery are going to be extremely popular, and then maybe people leaving space for Tony Jones in the flex. Who are your favorite plays beyond that?
Yeah, well, originally I was just going to completely ignore the Buffalo situation in their backfield, but now I have to kind of rethink that a little bit. My inkling always is just going to probably just going to be to skew towards the player that's in the game that's the latest, right? Like I still think that like that's what matters to me more than a projection that's really close. So you're getting to the point where if they're both in that last game, I'm just probably going to pick the one that works a little bit better with my stack, or if it's going to be an extremely chalky Singletary, whoever it may be, I'm just going to play the guy that fades that. So,
Leo, with looking at the quarterback ceiling projections, I mean, Josh Allen and Prescott separate in a massive way from even the Carr and Dalton tier. I mean, can you galaxy brain Carr, Dalton in our size field stuff, or is this just basically you got to choose between Allen and Prescott?
I think I'd rather fade Montgomery and do something weird in the first game and get more information and plan on using Dak or Allen. Just like the upside of those stacks and those quarterbacks individually are so high. Like they can really separate in a really meaningful way. And it's a more predictable way than the other positions because there's a lot more variance at any of the skill positions. So I lean towards in small field, even though it's going to be chalky, taking one of those top 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, to me, just like looking at the ownership percentages, Montgomery does look like the best fade to me. In just knowing that he can get game scripted out. There are scenarios where he won't catch a lot of passes. His games where he's gone off have been on, really nice rush efficiency. And that's not something you can bank on week to week. So if he's going to be 50, 60, 70% in our stuff, and like you said, getting the informational advantage of having that early seems like the way to go.
I think he's going to be massive, but I am curious who you guys, like, let's say we agree to fade Montgomery early. Who would we want to play in that game? I mean, it's possible you could full fade the game and just like literally, decide between the late 2 games, but just curious what you guys think there.
Yeah, that was like going to be my next question for you guys. Like, who do we like in that game? Then on like the cheaper side, a couple of the guys that we talked about with Reeves today, Marquise Goodwin, I think is somewhat interesting. And then from the Detroit guys, like Josh Reynolds played a ton of snaps last week and he's only 3K. So those would be the 2 guys I think that would make sense to take some shots on. And then you're kind of leveraging Darnell Mooney a little bit also. So those are the 2 guys I think. Marquise Goodwin actually might be a little chalkier than I thought. I guess this might have updated as well since I was last looking.
When I reran our stuff, I do think people are going to play Marquise Goodwin. Not like crazy, but we had him at like 10%. Now we have him like 20. And I think that's probably more accurate.
Okay.
That's I mean, do you think Mooney's going to be rostered at a clip similar to Montgomery? I mean, obviously Mooney's not going to be sneaky whatsoever, but do you think Mooney without Montgomery would be somewhat unique?
I think Mooney's going to be popular. I don't know if it's going to be correlated with Montgomery like one way or the other.
Yeah.
So I could see Montgomery being like 70% in our stuff. Whereas Mooney, I think like kind of stays where he is because there's like coverage from Lamb, Gallup, Diggs, where like he doesn't really get steamed in small field. He kind of just like, he's probably gonna be like 40%, which like it's a 3-game slate. You're probably gonna have to play some guys that are 40%. You are going to have to play some guys that are 40%. So I think Mooney's fine. I think probably taking one of the wide receivers makes sense. I'm also trying to think through the other hard part with fading Montgomery. It seems easy on the face, but then it's, let's say we're doing one spot for the Tony Jones Buffalo back potentially.
Yeah.
That second spot, what do you do? Because I don't think, like, I don't love Zeke or Jacobs, but it's pretty much Zeke, Jacobs, Swift. You got to decide one of those guys.
I was going to say, do we think Swift is just good chalk that you should eat just because he's going to have similar ceiling to Montgomery? I mean, to me, just looking at it, trying to access ceiling, especially if things really swing over to Lamb and people are still kind of on Gallup. I mean, is Zeke going to be one of the better leverage plays there that still gives you that big ceiling?
I like the Zeke call a lot, especially like exactly what you said. There was probably going to be more ownership that way before just because you had salary to spend. Now people are probably just going to play Lamb in that game. I'm curious to see kind of what it does to Gallup also. So I think that like he was going to be like the chalk cheap wide receiver, maybe not now. I kind of like in that last game as well, before I forget, I think Marquez Callaway at 5K, if he's going to be like sub 10%, is super interesting since he's more of like the touchdown scorer in that offense anyway.
I think he's going to be sub 10%.
Yeah. I think I like him more than like everyone's talking about Traquan and his target share being like increased over the last little while. I think Callaway is probably the guy that I would prefer anyway.
Yeah. I mean, is anyone going to play or excited to play Traquan? I mean, I think without Troutman too, I mean, his role should be pretty good, right?
Traquan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a little worried about Callaway, but it seems okay. But and Deontay Harris there too. I don't know. I'm kind of don't really want to play a New Orleans wide receiver, I guess, if I can avoid it. But I'm trying to.
It's also. Oh, go ahead.
But like if I'm looking through stuff, like I'm just kind of messing around with the lineup. Like you can do a pretty big onslaught of Dallas Vegas with Dak and then have, like Tony Jones Beasley late and sort of like full fade that first game is an option as long as you're willing to play, Jacobs or Zeke in that game onslaught.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I do feel like the Saints are tricky, and it seems like most people are just going to be keeping a spot open for Tony Jones. And so there will be lots of nice options there. I guess like if you're looking at pure kind of swap stuff, like if you have 4,400 available, the fact that you could go from Tony Jones to Traquan to Deontay Harris, obviously Marquez Callaway, you'd need even more than that, but kind of having those options to play the ownership game seems like it might be a good way to play it.
What's nice too is if you ended up starting with Buffalo defense, and then you could always, I guess there's only a $200 difference. There's a massive difference for defenses on FanDuel. So I take that back. Sometimes I've been like messing with like just putting Buffalo in defense and then moving down to New Orleans in order to move up somewhere else for late swap. But you can't even do that as easily on DraftKings.
No, you could though. I think Beasley will be pretty popular. If you leave 500 though, you can go Beasley to Callaway, who you like, Joe, or if you don't leave any money, you can just go Beasley to Traquan as a straight pivot late. I assume Beasley will be probably more than those two guys combined, quite frankly.
I just ran your guys' most updated optimal with the ETR projections, and I'm seeing Prescott, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Darnell Mooney, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, Cole Kmet, Tony Jones, Bears D. Kind of surprising that DeAndre Swift got pushed out of that optimal there.
Yeah, I wonder if I'll talk to Adam and kind of pick his brain on what he thinks the main cash game lineup is going to be that people play. But if we do start reading the tea leaves and it looks like Swift isn't going to be played a ton, just play Swift, don't play Montgomery, and you'll keep things relatively open. Might be a good strategy for that first game. And just not mess with Chicago one way or the other.
Yeah, like looking at just optimal breakdowns, just to give people, I just ran 100 lineups with the ETR optimal. So, Dak 55%, Josh Allen 45%. So pretty split between those guys. Montgomery at 100%, and then Tony Jones 72%, Swift all the way down at 45%, Jacobs 29%, Zeke 7%, and then you get Lamb 91%. Now really popping Mooney, Beasley, Gallup, Diggs. Tight end, heavy Cole Kmet, Waller, and Schultz there, defense, Bears and Bills. So I guess not a ton of surprises except kind of that shifting of Swift coming out, Lamb popping back in there, and also seeing a decent amount of double tight ends too. Seeing some Kmet and Waller, seeing some Waller and Schultz. Any interest in the double tight end lineup?
I was looking at Waller Schultz, if you're just hitting the passing, just hope that game gets up tempo. The thing at wide receivers is not very deep. There's guys that make, like if you're playing MME, there's guys that you can sprinkle that can catch long touchdowns and you feel good about. But like if you're playing small field and you care a little bit more about the median projection along with the upside, I mean, it does thin out pretty quickly. Like I'm looking at, even just in terms of raw projection, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got 6 guys in double digits. That's it. And of those 6 guys in double digits, a couple of them project behind Hawkinson and Waller straight up.
Yeah. Joe, do you have any other off the board tight ends, outside of the Waller and Schultz? Any love for Hawkinson here?
And I'm just like, I think I would like Hawkinson a little bit more if he wasn't in the first game. I'm leaning more towards having like basically 0 of that game as of now. So I think like it depends on like, I can't remember what our field size is in the 1500, but like I think roster construction is going to be where we find our edge, just because some of these guys I just assumed would be lower owned than they actually are now that everything's kind of getting rerun. Like I loved Dalton Schultz before just as like somewhat of a pivot off of Gallup. Maybe we see Schultz's ownership kind of go down a little bit with CeeDee coming in, but he was one of those guys underneath that like should have in theory just ate against the Raiders. The Raiders are giving up a ton of target share just to tight ends in the middle of the field because they just refuse to get beat deep,
Yeah.
Knox looks like a decent upside guy who's not that expensive. Like kind of gets caught in the middle there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Waller and Schultz, right, are going to be the most popular. And then, I mean, I know you guys have your ownership projections, but how do you think Hawkinson, Kmet, and Knox shake out as the next three? Because they're the clear next three, but do you think one of those will separate from the others?
It's tough. When I run like straight optimals, I look at like what the market's doing, it doesn't feel like Knox is going to get played a lot. Then when I see our ownership projection on site, I'm like, people are going to play Knox more than that. So it's like, I'm having a tough time with that one. Right now we have Knox at 13%, Hawkinson at 24%, Kmet at 18%. I do feel like Kmet's the fade, just like, like I'd rather play Knox than Kmet. And I do think even if they were close enough, I'd rather play. It's just hard. I have to double check that our Kmet projection looks hot. It just, his target share, with the exception of last game when he was chalk, of course, has been like consistently in the upper teens. You just don't find a lot of tight ends like that who are really cheap. But at the same time, we haven't really seen any sort of upside materialize from him.
Yeah. And I guess you could say this about a few of these guys, but kind of touchdown or bust. It is interesting that I just feel like in other contexts, Dawson Knox, who has been performing well of late, tied to the best quarterback on the slate, like the fact that you could get him as the 5th most popular tight end on a 3-game slate seems like an exploitable spot.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to have money to spend now too. So like, it might be just easier for people to move up from Knox to get up to Dalton Schultz now that we have some of this running back value opening up too. Like, people aren't going to want to leave that salary on the table. So one of the things that we could consider too, depending on how the first game goes, if we do end up having Dalton Schultz on a team, maybe that's a spot where we just move that to Dawson Knox and we end up just leaving some salary on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, and to me, I mean, I feel like if you're playing Josh Allen, I basically want to have Dawson Knox in that lineup with Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think so.
The other thing, tight end defense, looking at kind of where are the spots where you could exploit stuff. I mean, running back does seem like it's going to be the most concentrated around those 5 running backs: Swift, Montgomery, Zeke, Jacobs, and Tony Jones. It does seem like in the Pollard, Kenyon Drake, Singletary, Jamal Williams, Matt Breida tier, that feels like where you could really get the unique play that kind of helps make the difference there. Does anyone stand out to you in that bunch?
Go ahead, Leone.
In like the Breida group?
Yeah, I'm just thinking like if everyone's playing like the same 4 to 5 backs, it does seem like one of those secondary running backs could be a potential difference maker, and is just leverage on the Tony Jones play that most people are going to make.
I think, I don't know, it's tough because the Moss speculation has me wanting to wait and take one of the Buffalo guys. If it wasn't for that, I do think like Jamal Williams at Stone 4K is like, if they end up tightening up that running back share a little bit more. Like, we've seen Swift pull away, but also last week was Jamal Williams' first game back. They tightened it up a little bit more. 4K, like, he's just got to fall into the end zone one time. And then you're just hoping that Tony Jones fails, or possibly a unique lineup where you're playing both of them.
Well, and Jamal Williams is an interesting one, right? Because, early on in the season, him and DeAndre Swift were playing pretty similar roles, right? Where they were both getting a decent amount of rush and passing work. We've now seen it shift with Jamal Williams out, where DeAndre Swift actually doesn't have as big of a receiving role as he did early in the year, and his rushing work has gone way up. And do we think now with Jamal Williams, this is his second game fully back, that like it could revert back to more what it was at the start, in which case the inputs on his projections might be a little bit more fragile than they seem?
Yeah, I think we have him for like a 30% rush share or something, and he was more, in the 40s before, which, might not sound like a lot, but that's a 25% increase basically in his projection, because we have him at a 32% rush share. So, he was, when they were more equally splitting, his projection would be 25% higher, which is quite a bit. That's like throwing 2.3 point. That like puts him more at like 10 points instead of 7.
Yeah. Joe, do you have any? Oh, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, like, my initial thought was maybe Kenyon Drake, but man, the volume has been so rough there. So maybe if you did have the salary to get up to like Pollard, and he ends up to being like kind of that mid-range guy that gets squeezed with all these like better plays at that price point, he might be interesting at like 15 or less percent. But yeah, I don't know.
Hearing Joe talk through that in general, like you kind of want to like fuck around at wide receiver, not running back though, just because it's just so much more of an uphill climb when you're like a dog to, like a 10 touch dog to these guys. Whereas, Deshaun Jackson could score a long touchdown and that's it. One play, he's there. These backs, it's just a little bit tougher. Like they kind of have to grind out value. And if you're starting 10 touches down to separate in a meaningful way, you might be trying a little bit too hard, and it might be just easier to, just take a dart throw on one of the cheaper wide receivers.
It does seem to, like you said, if you're playing Allen, you're tossing in a Gabe Davis to that, or if you're playing a Dak Prescott, double or triple, you have a Deshaun Jackson as the bring back, and just it does seem like really leaning into kind of the game or the stack and just trying to find a way to capture those points, even if you're kind of over correlating.
Yeah, I think so. Djax is interesting. We have him literally for a 3.6 projection, and I'm like, I could see playing Djax. I could see.
Played like 19 snaps last week though.
I mean, it's literally you're just hoping for the one play.
No, I agree with you. That's like basically what that offense needs to get back on track, right? Is open up some space for Waller and Renfro underneath, and like if they're not going to let Djax play more than 19 snaps, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I was reading Karane's walkthrough earlier for the Thanksgiving slate, and he was talking about how the offense has kind of been pushed in those opposite directions where, they do want to have that vertical element in, Edwards, Jackson, and Zay Jones have a pretty big ADOT, and then Waller and Renfro's ADOT has actually been shrinking a little bit, where it's almost kind of polarized with how they're doing that offense there. We have James in the chat too, getting his hand in the dirt, saying they'll bracket Waller and focus on Renfro, which would open up things deep there. So yeah, taking stabs on some of those deep threats. The hard thing is, how do you decide between Zay Jones and Djax and Edwards on that?
Yeah, and when you're wrong, you're looking at a stone zero, and you're kind of dead. So I don't know. Maybe the move is though then taking a moderately owned Goodwin early, where it's a little less shaky. Yeah. But we get that cheap wide receiver, see what happens. I know that doesn't fit in with the correlation side of things, but that gives us like the, Montgomery fade, a little bit of information early, and a lot of salary to play with to decide if we want a Buffalo onslaught or just hit the Dallas Las Vegas game quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should start to maybe we can pull up a lineup here and try to build. And because I think the other thing we should kind of talk through are those potential late swap situations, both whether we get buried early or just because of inactive news. Because I'm guessing it might behoove us to have those conversations now before we're all drunk and tired at 4 p.m. tomorrow.
Yeah. I wonder too, I could see the Bills defense ownership like getting pretty high.
Yeah.
I guess Bears and Lions would be chalky too, but I almost wouldn't mind getting defense out of the way early. Just, another bit of information, because sometimes the defense is, if you get really lucky, it can be in a pretty big way. And if Buffalo ends up being really chalky, I don't know if I can stomach swapping to the Saints late, but I guess if you had to, you had to.
I think if I was playing in my Allen, onslaughts or whatever, I think the Cowboys look pretty good to me in that context of just hoping that the Dak stuff fails and that it's pretty run heavy and the defense gets it done. But otherwise, I do like that idea. The issue is it looks like Bears and Lions are going to be fairly popular. The Bills, Bears look like they're going to be the most popular.
Yeah, I think it'd be like a weird like Goodwin Lions start, which I know it's not correlated, but I don't think you can overthink that on the slate this small. or it would be.
I hate playing the defense in the first game though. I understand that like they're very cheap, and if you get them there, you're fine. But also like even if you say that Detroit scores a defensive touchdown, like we can still adjust our strategy the rest of the way with our skill position players and at least try and make up ground. I like Pete's idea of if we're going to roll out Josh Allen playing Dallas, if we're going to roll out a Dallas stack, we just play Buffalo, right? So even if Chicago and Detroit get there, like we have one of those outs, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
Buffalo
I guess
could
I
easily
just
match
have a
them.
gut instinct that Bills are going to end up like really like the chalkiest.
You don't think it would be somewhat similar between like those and the cheap guys in the first game?
I kind of think the Bills will be. I mean, dude, it's a guess. Like our stuff has them all really, really close. But and also if we're mostly fading the offensive players in that first game, like just having it be a sloppy game where the defenses compile points. But I'm not like super tied to that. It's just what I was.
I could also see the Bears defensive ownership coming down a smidge because I think a lot of the early stuff was assuming that Boyle was going to play. And maybe it doesn't feel like quite the slam dunk on the road with Goff playing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's wishful thinking.
There's no way it comes in low, but
yeah,
I do think that's another angle of like, okay, Buffalo comes in at 40 and these other two Ds coming at like 20. But maybe, I mean, I don't mind playing the Cowboys one. I just kind of like playing that game. But as Joe said, we do have, like we can kind of pivot it based on like if we do the Dallas stack, we can play the Bills, and if we do the Bills stack, we can play the Cowboys D.
I mean, I could be totally wrong. I just think that like I would rather have that out. Like I'm with you. I also don't want to get in a situation where we have to play the Saints D, which is why I think that if we got that far, maybe that's the Dallas team. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's try build a lineup here. Maybe we can talk through some of these specific decisions. Greg letting us know that Kamara officially ruled out. And so it does seem like Ingram will kind of be the big domino, but with him trending in that direction, I think it makes sense to assume that. So where should we start here? Just to let people know, we are, as of now, registered for the 1,500. And Leone, did you confirm what that field size is for us tomorrow?
141 people.
141 people. So pretty small, and on a short slate, we're going to see some pretty massive numbers here as far as the field's exposure. It sounds like we are kind of gravitating to either an Allen or a Prescott game here, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
I think Dak is the if things go right stack because it's a pretty. I think Gallup and Lamb are such good plays.
Yeah.
That like if like the Montgomery fade goes right early or whatever we do early, we play Dak. And if not, you can go to Allen. And like Joe said, you said if we play Allen, we can play Knox. You could potentially play Gabriel Davis. Like there's a little bit more ways to get unique with the Allen stuff. And Allen himself could, separate even in a way that Dak can't.
Do you want to build in like this scenario right now so we figure out what we want from the first game and have two specific teams that we pivot to if even just game one doesn't
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we should start with Tony Jones.
In the flex?
I think just at running back is fine. And,
okay.
And we can see how it goes.
Oops, that's the wrong Tony.
I guess we would do Bills D on this one if we're doing like the late D swap, accordingly. Yeah.
And then, as far as the pass catchers here, I assume Lamb, if you're playing Dak, you pretty much have to play Lamb, right?
I think so. I think it's Gallup, Lamb, and then either Zeke or Schultz.
Right. And so how do you talk that through how you think, obviously on a main slate, you would never toss in Zeke with an onslaught like that unless you were Joe in a small field tournament where he's playing every single player on the same team. But why might we be able to get away with that here?
Yeah. So you don't need each player on a 3-game slate to hit their ceiling. If you look at the other backs on this slate, you basically just need Zeke to outscore Swift. And he's correlated to the Cowboys offense doing well still. He's just not, his 99th percentile outcome's not going to line up with Dak, CeeDee, and Gallup's 99th percentile outcome. But if the offense does really well, all of them should, exceed their projections. So they still are positively correlated.
This is a good point by Jason too about Montgomery steaming the Bears D, and that people will naturally feel pretty comfortable with that defensive running back correlation there. And I think that'll just be an easy click for people who also put Montgomery in. So just not playing those two, I think will get you pretty unique just from the gate.
Also, one thing I was looking at, the play that literally the only guy that we have. Okay. I'm still drunk. A player that only us I've seen project like even modern. And never mind, I'm not going to say it. I looked at something wrong. It doesn't look that good. Never. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
Just don't.
Yeah, no, I was just building out how this could look, and if we ended up just fading Gallup and going full Dak, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb, Schultz, it's pretty easy even just to play a Swift, Marquise Goodwin mini in the first game, and then we would have Tony Jones in the flex, Buffalo defense, and then pick your poison in that last wide receiver slot at about 4,700 or so. So easier to pivot that Dak team over to a Knox team if we play Schultz, and you can still pretty easily get some firepower in there if you're willing to play Goodwin at 3,800.
Yeah, I do like playing Goodwin. One version I looked at was Dak, Jones, Jacobs, Gallup, CeeDee, Beasley, Waller, and then that leaves 6,400 to kind of mess around with.
Yeah. Who was the guy that's different in what I had there? I missed your
Beasley, right?
So Lamb and Beasley instead of Zeke and Goodwin.
Oh, okay.
One micro thing on Beasley, just because all this stuff from Reeves is just like going through my head like crazy right now because I guess edited for 4 hours. But basically, Beasley specifically has seen a very large target share against zone defenses in particular, and like this is a defense that plays almost exclusively man defense and man coverage. So he kind of liked the idea of fading Beasley if he was going to be like just someone that people would click for no reason. Diggs obviously smashes against man coverage as well. So definitely a bear signal for Beasley overall. It doesn't mean you can't play him. Just means that his volume hasn't been like a spike spot against these type of coverages.
So who is the running back in that scenario if you're getting rid of Zeke, Mike?
I think like Jacobs, I think if you're playing the onslaught, like, he saw a shitload of targets last week. He's been pretty consistently involved in the passing game. Like if you look at his game log, I mean, since he came back, he's got 5, 5, 1, 3, 4, 5, 7 targets. Like that's pretty solid, and you get the touchdown upside. So I don't think he really gets scripted out, even though he's not, usually like him from ahead. But he could also get ahead, and this Dak's fine if Jacobs gets ahead. So, but yeah, you could take Beasley out of that. Like if you did Goodwin, could you play Diggs or no? It doesn't fit. No, it's not going to fit.
Yeah, you just miss it by 800 there. Yeah, I mean, it does seem like if you did want to just kind of just load up on this game, I mean, you could even toss, Renfro in it and almost play it like a 3v3.
You could do Renfro Schultz
too.
Yeah.
Or I play Schultz.
It just basic. I mean, and we've seen you've seen lineups like this take these slates down because it's not hard to believe Bears, Lions being shitty, and just playing. How do you feel on a short slate like Tony Jones versus Bills D? Just still completely fine.
Yeah, totally fine. I think that I honestly almost don't even care about it that much on a main slate. Like,
yeah.
So I definitely.
You're just trying to get the one touchdown from the 6 defenses.
Mm-hmm.
And Jones is, if he scores once, he's gonna get there. And
so the issue, obviously, to me with this lineup is zero early information, right?
Yeah, the information's all the fade information. I'm trying to think the reduced version that's like. Got Goodwin in.
It's probably just to move out.
Like Swift Goodwin?
Yeah.
Does that fit?
Swift Goodwin is just short, I think.
Goodwin's 3,800. That fits.
Yeah. Okay. Swift at running back. Okay. I see what you're doing. Swift, Goodwin, Schultz, and just playing one Raider. Okay.
Yeah. So then you'd be down to just Waller in that scenario.
The other one I was wondering is if we want, like, do we want the 1K left over from Jones to get up to Breda or Singletary?
Right.
And that would be a pretty specific scenario where the first game went well enough that we stuck with the Dak stack, and then the Dak stack didn't go well. But
yeah, I mean, yeah,
well, you have more. You can move defense around at that point, right?
Oh,
I don't
that's
think
true.
we have enough.
If you move down to Raiders, what does that give you?
Well, I think you wouldn't know. But the problem is that game would have been locked by the time you know. If you
I thought you were talking about after the first game. Got you.
Yeah, that's tricky. I was trying to see who else.
I guess leave that out for now and just see if we can make this into a Bills stack. Like, let's say it doesn't go early. I think that's when you would go like Allen, Knox, Gabe Davis or something.
Right. Yeah, because Gabe's going to open up a decent amount for you there. If you go Knox, I get off of.
Yeah, that's where you could play Zeke to maybe like fuck up the Dallas passing game.
Right. You
and
could
Zeke with like Zeke Cowboys D.
Yeah. And then you could still have, I guess you go Gallup instead of Lamb in that spot. Am I looking at this right? Yeah.
Or you could even get off Gallup, right? Or like, what if you kept Tony Jones still? So like Jones in flex.
And then who would be your other running back or wide receiver? Let's see here.
I think you're 100 off Diggs.
Jeez. That's brutal because that's super close.
Yeah.
Although, because
you did Joe's Reynolds play instead of the Goodwin play, by kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, obviously Goodwin projects a lot better.
Yeah, but I mean, you
could just play Buffalo with Josh Allen.
I don't mind like that kind of thought too, where I think we are, we're still always generally in like mini correlation mode, but on that slate and just being like, well, what if Chicago just bottoms out and the Lions offense is, successful with Swift and Josh Reynolds? I mean, that's going to be, I could easily see that working out.
For sure.
Yeah. It's,
so I think something roughly like this. One thing to try and keep our pulse on is where we think the Hawkinson stuff ends up at.
I don't think people want to play Hawkinson anymore.
Like I could see him getting squeezed in the small field, and then it's like, do we just play Hawkinson, at tight end right away, get a little different there, and not, that.
I don't hate that. There's so many good tight ends to play. Like every game.
Hawkinson's honestly been fine. He just hasn't been in the end zone.
Yeah. So plus, you've got 2 11 target games in there. There aren't, Waller's the only other guy on this slate that in terms of volume can get there. Like Knox and Schultz can get there on efficiency, but no one's going to match that type of volume other than Waller.
How much does your projection on Schultz come down if Lamb is active?
It's not a ton because I think, just with Cooper being out, solidifies his role already. So I think I moved him like half a point of target share. Like I think he's pretty insulated. He's going to be a pretty decent part of this offense. And Joe had some matchup stuff in his favor as well.
Mookie asking why play Bills D in that line and get back to Goodwin. I mean, I would think because we're going so heavy on the Bills there, and we're playing it as if that kind of game implodes for the passing game and just getting kind of like the Zeke and Cowboys D, almost similar to what's happened, the past couple weeks versus the Falcons and the Chiefs, where the Cowboys passing game implodes. That to me kind of checks out intuitively.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my big takeaway too is like you were saying, you're going to have to think through a few of these kind of swaps. And it's just hard because, if the Dallas Raiders game was early, there'd be so much information you could get, but you really don't want to be playing we just built a few different versions and we didn't have more than 2 guys from those early games.
Yeah, I think I think we're all in agreement, like fading Montgomery, getting that information. And then the hard part is, do we leave the rest? Do we just leave it all the way open, or do we play one guy and get some signal there?
Right. I kind of am coming around on that Hawkinson call. Because his ownership looks low. He can separate from some of those other tight ends. And if you can just bank, his first touchdown in weeks, I mean, you're really, really looking good.
And then you're basically saying, okay, we'll play Jones, or, maybe it's Mark Ingram. I don't know. We still don't know for sure. Like maybe we'll just play New Orleans running back chalk with one of Zeke Jacobs, however it kind of fits.
Yeah.
At your running back. And then you're stacking out the rest.
Yeah.
Think about the people that are playing like the defenses in that game too, or Swift and or Montgomery. Like I feel like there's not gonna be many people that play Swift, Detroit defense, and Hawkinson, or Montgomery, Chicago defense, and Hawkinson. You know what I mean? It's just like not a comfortable roster thing to do really for any of those people.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are outs to us just hitting like the pure nuts early. Like Hawkinson goes nuts, everybody else kind of tanks, and then at that point, we might just be making like an optimal lineup, like we might not even be overly onslaughting. We might do like a regular double with a bring back and then, 2 Bills guys or something,
Yeah.
I feel better about that stand than just picking a random wide receiver who could get 0 in the first game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, guys. I feel like we have a good foundation for the slate. Obviously, a decent amount of news. Oh my goodness! Look who's back. Noel fan emptying his super chat lineup. How's it going, Noel fan?
What's up, Noel?
Happy Thanksgiving to Leone, Joe, and the other guy. You know what? Being called the other guy when I just got $10 extra in my coffers. I think I can allow that there. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Noel, and your family here. So yes, we will. We're not going to be doing a live show tomorrow unless, I'll just say this right now. If we have a legitimate sweat to win the 1,500, I'll force you guys to get online.
Sounds good. I'll be on the cell phone. I'll have a giant bill on my hat. I can guarantee you that. You guys can make fun of my hat.
Joe, whether you're getting on a plane tomorrow morning or tonight?
Tomorrow morning, I might miss like the beginning of this first game, which seems like a win, but I'm sure I'll have Wi-Fi on the plane to keep an eye on it.
And Leone,
buddy, you're gonna miss us just fist pumping every single TJ Hawkinson 6-yard catch.
Hey man, maybe if I didn't have to edit all day today and get a bunch of content that's now worthless, I could have left today.
Yeah, you over here trying to edit good content when the play was just getting drunk and bullshitting all afternoon.
Yeah, you got to do the drunk content live, Joe, and then
I don't know,
man.
People get upset.
Purpose.
People get upset at me, man. I'm getting a lot of heat from this tilt space performance, so maybe I should chill out.
What heat are you getting?
Yeah, what heat? People loved it. I mean, I might have given you some shit, but
maybe.
I think it would. I mean, did you see the tilt space highlight reel?
Yeah, I saw it. I had to edit out all the expletives to put it on my channel. So
yeah. You had to do a re-edit?
I literally had to re-edit the edit to put it on my channel. So tough scene.
Leone, what is the dish you are most looking forward to eating tomorrow?
My mom's chocolate pie. Chocolate pie. Chocolate and banana cream pie.
I don't know if I've ever had chocolate pie on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's not traditionally Thanksgiving, but I don't know. I like that better than an apple pie.
Okay. I'm a pecan pie guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as I just like to throw it all together on a plate. Gets like almost make it like a garbage plate
and just put gravy on all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
My favorite dish, head and shoulders, is, some people call it stuffing. My in-laws call it dressing. I mean, that is, it's so good. It's my favorite thing by far.
Stuffing for me too. I'm actually not a pie person in general, but that chocolate one sounds amazing. That's like the only kind of pie I like is like the chocolate silk or whatever it's called. So yeah, that sounds good. Not really Thanksgiving-ish, but sounds great.
Do you worry that you might get fired, Leone, talking about Thanksgiving foods you like? Levitan,
no,
catches
I've
one of this.
pushed back against corporate on this Thanksgiving take.
It's a pretty bad take.
It's a terrible take. I mean, I get to sit around all day while my son plays with his grandparents, so I can actually have some peace and quiet and watch football and eat. We eat early, like 2,
you
3
gotta have time
o'clock.
for you gotta have time for seconds at like 5.
Yes, 100%. I didn't even realize other people didn't do that until I went to Thanksgiving with in Rochester with Rachel's family, and they eat like normal dinner time. It's crazy. I eat like a little snack.
You got the
in
Bills
the
this year, man. Like this is like the best Thanksgiving ever for you.
It is. It's great.
And we're gonna have all the money like with Hawkinson after the first game. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving leftovers are just incredibly good. I'll eat it for 3 straight days and then be done with it. But Saturday will be my last Thanksgiving meal. I'll enjoy it, and then we'll see you again next year. I also like this call from Worm. My mother-in-law sometimes makes the pumpkin roll. Have you guys had that?
I haven't.
Yeah, it's real good. It's a dessert. Normally has like a cream cheese filling. That's pretty good. Lou appreciates my broccoli hoodie because Lou has one of these as well. So stay healthy, eat broccoli. I appreciate you guys hopping on with me. I really tried to keep my composure. I was pretty drunk on the Swolecast. I feel like I kept it together decently.
Better than Joe.
So I'm gonna be the guy that can't hold it together now. It's even worse than LinkedIn guy.
No, Joe. Now Joe's gonna go the opposite. He's gonna go stone serious.
Everybody go on LinkedIn and endorse Joe as Mr. LinkedIn guy after this. I appreciate you guys. I am thankful for you guys. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Hopefully we'll have a sweat tomorrow. Maybe we'll post our lineup or some of our plays on Twitter throughout the day if we have a sweat. Otherwise, we will see you guys back Sunday night at 6 p.m. on the Tilt Space on the Establish the Run channel. Joe, Leone, any other plugs, final parting shots here?
Yeah. Check out the Establish the Show on Establish the Run. That's going to go live, I think, pretty shortly here. Nick Underhill, Saints beat writer, is going to make an appearance. So if you're wondering all the Saints news, check that out. Friend of the show. And also go rewatch on YouTube. We did a prop betting show. I think Levitan's doing that right now. Actually, definitely getting in trouble from corporate for going up live against the prop betting show. But props has been so much fun to bet. I think we took the Beasley over, but it might have gotten taken down right away. But check that out. Bet some props on Thanksgiving.
Holka,
yeah,
what do you got going?
Just about 2 hours of Thanksgiving content on my channel. That should be just about out. If anything, like some of the stuff that I did with Reeps today, like I'm trying to get better at like looking at some of the coverage stuff and the real micro stuff, and like at least add some of that to my game because I think I skewed a little bit too heavily towards the math at times. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I'll see you on Sunday. Gonna be a quick trip to Arizona and back, but yeah, should be great Thanksgiving.
And if you guys are, maybe going to be at your computer all day tomorrow, I would tell you this. If I wasn't going over to my in-laws, I would be running the Sims on every single one of these showdown slates and firing. So take advantage of that if you are home or you don't have, in-laws or relatives who would look glaringly at you if you were on your computer all day. But all those Sims are going to be pumping for tomorrow. They'll get you updated with all of the latest injury news. So thankful for Run the Sims this year. Thankful for Leone and Holka and the Tilt Space. Appreciate you guys hanging out. We're going to be back tonight over on the Ship Chasing channel. We're going to have a bit of a party over there if you guys would like to join us at 9:15. Otherwise, have a great Thanksgiving. I'm debating if I'm going to do a GPP strategy show on Friday or Saturday. I might push it back to Saturday just to give us a little bit extra time here on this weird week. But thank you guys, as always, for watching. Hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving.